Early gains and shifting tides. The initial phase of the 2024 conflict. The year 2024 began with a renewed and aggressive Russian offensive in Ukraine, catching many by surprise. Moscow's forces, bolstered by a reorganized command structure and new tactics, made significant early gains. The Ukrainian resistance, though valiant and determined, seemed overwhelmed by the sheer scale and intensity of the assault. The world watched in shock and horror as the conflict escalated to a terrifying new level, with no end in sight. Russian troops captured several strategically important locations, further solidifying their hold. A critical factor in Russia's favor was the significant reduction in US military aid to Ukraine, which had been a lifeline. This decrease had an immediate and devastating impact on the battlefield, reducing Ukrainian firepower. Despite the challenging circumstances and mounting pressure, Ukrainian resolve did not waver. However, the reduction in US aid tipped the scales in Russia's favor, casting a long shadow over Ukraine's hopes for victory and peace. A stalled supply line. The impact of reduced US aid to Ukraine. The reduction in US military aid to Ukraine in early 2024 sent shockwaves through Kyiv, leaving officials scrambling to reassess their strategies. What had been a steady flow of advanced weapons systems slowed to a trickle, creating a significant gap in the Ukrainian defense capabilities. This shift in policy had immediate and far-reaching consequences for the Ukrainian war effort, affecting both frontline operations and strategic planning. Ukrainian units, accustomed to regular shipments of crucial equipment, faced critical shortages, forcing them to make do with what little they had. Ammunition stockpiles dwindled, hampering offensive operations and making it difficult to sustain prolonged engagements. The technological advantage provided by Western weaponry began to erode, leaving Ukrainian forces at a disadvantage against a well-equipped adversary. The reduction in aid also had a profound psychological impact on both Ukrainian forces and the civilian population, who began to question the future. Morale began to flag as doubt and uncertainty grew, with many wondering if they had been abandoned by their allies. The reduction in US aid emboldened Putin, breathing new life into his campaign and giving him a strategic upper hand. It also raised concerns among other Western allies, some of whom followed suit with their own reductions in aid, further complicating the situation. The consequences of this policy shift continue to reverberate, raising serious questions about the West's commitment to defending democracy and the future of international alliances. A string of victories, key territories captured by Russian forces. Emboldened by the reduction in US aid, Russian forces went on the offensive in early 2024. Their advances resulted in the capture of several strategically important territories in eastern and southern Ukraine. Among the most critical losses for Ukraine was the city of Severodonetsk, a key industrial center. Another significant loss was the port city of Mariupol, giving Russia control over the Sea of Azov coastline. These victories came at a heavy cost, with significant casualties on both sides. The capture of these territories did little to quell the fierce resistance put up by Ukrainian forces. The war was far from over, but the balance of power had shifted in Russia's favor. A desperate reshuffle, Putin's cabinet shakeup and its implications. In May 2024, Vladimir Putin announced a surprise reshuffle of his cabinet. Among the most significant changes was the removal of Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin, replaced by Sergei Sobyanin. Other high-profile officials were also removed, and a wave of arrests followed. The message was clear. Putin was tightening his grip on power and would tolerate no dissent. The reshuffle was a sign that the war and international pressure were taking a toll on Putin's regime. Empty shelves and growing unrest. The reality of Russia's economic crisis. The sight of empty shelves has become a common occurrence in many parts of Russia. While Russian forces made gains on the battlefield, the economic situation at home deteriorated rapidly, creating a stark contrast between military success and domestic hardship. Crippling Western sanctions and government mismanagement plunged the Russian economy into a deep recession, causing the ruble to plummet and the stock market to crash. Ordinary Russians felt the pinch as prices for basic goods soared and shortages became commonplace, making daily life increasingly difficult. Supermarket shelves were bare, and long lines formed outside stores, with people waiting for hours just to buy essentials. The price of medicine skyrocketed, and many essential drugs were unavailable, leaving many without necessary treatments. The economic crisis fueled growing discontent with Putin's rule, as more and more people took to the streets to voice their frustrations. Protests became more frequent, despite being quickly dispersed by authorities who struggled to maintain control. The Kremlin's propaganda machine struggled to keep up with the growing tide of anger and frustration, as state narratives were increasingly ignored. As the economic situation worsened, Putin's hold on power became increasingly tenuous, with his leadership facing unprecedented criticism.